Recording. Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today for our monthly free webinar at the Center for Financial Social Work. Our topic this month is the psychology of debt. I'm Rita Wolfson. I'm the founder of the Financial Social Work discipline and the Financial Therapy Network. I'm so glad you could join us. So, to start off today, we are actually going to start with an interactive poll. Let's pull that up and see who is with us today. Okay, I'm launching the poll. Very often we have people from other countries. We've had people from Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, I believe, Germany. Today we do have some other people from some other country. You can write which country that is if you'd like to share it with us. You can do that in the question box. We're somewhat focused with 80% of you voting. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm going to count it down. If you want to share that information, you can, and we'll take a quick look at it and get started. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll close it, and I will share it with you, and you will see that we are mostly Midwest and South, with an equal amount from the West and the Northeast. Let's just take a quick look and see if anyone wanted to tell us of another country. No, I don't see that. Okay, let's go ahead and close that and get started. So, very, very popular topic because this is a near record registration. We want to welcome everyone that's new to our monthly webinars and welcome back everyone who joined us more consistently. So I had something unexpected happen with this webinar. Those of you who join us more regularly may know that I was in Hong Kong the past few weeks. I'd been invited to bring financial social work there and been preparing for that for about a year. After arriving in Hong Kong, just about a day or so into my trip, I received an email saying that our guest speaker for this month's webinar on the psychology of debt could not meet that commitment and wasn't going to be able to do this for us. So halfway around the world, I decided I've been doing this for 20 years. This is actually our 20th anniversary here at the Center for Financial Social Work. And I'm very well acquainted with most things having to do with debt, as you're about to find out as we proceed. So I decided, well, we'll do this webinar. And I'm happy that we did because while I always learn from our guest speakers, just as all of you learn from them, I actually learned a lot of things that I'm about to share with you. So let's go ahead and see what some of those things were. So the psychology of debt is complicated. Well, we all know how complicated debt actually is in so many ways, and it's different for each of us, but debt is stressful. What I didn't know are some of the things that I'm going to share with you. Well, I knew that debt impacts the lives of all Americans. 2/3 of all Americans are stressed about finances. Almost half of us have trouble paying monthly bills. 40% are financially illiterate. Almost 1 in 5 Americans expect to take their debt to the grave. And this is a brand new statistic I just found today. Of the 1 in 4 Americans who will experience a mental health problem in their lives, 1 in 2 people of that group will face issues related to debt. So mental health problems and money I've always suspected that, and I even have several slides to emphasize that in this presentation today. So, in the lives of Americans, too many have no or little savings, assets, emergency or retirement funds, or hope of a better financial future. Debt is a real shackle for so many Americans, certainly for our clients, and certainly for some of those on this webinar. So, where was I going to begin with the psychology of debt? Well, here's the surprising thing. Looking for the research, there really wasn't any on the psychology of debt. You know what there was? There was research on behavioral economics, behavioral finance, marketing psychology, psychology of consumer behavior, psychology of consumer buying behavior, marketing psychology, sales psychology, psychology of spending. So what does all of that say to you? Well, none of that is designed or meant to benefit consumers. We have been and are being studied in every way possible to figure out how to get consumers to buy more stuff. So what does that mean? What it means is that we may think we're in control of our decision making and masters of our own destiny, but sadly, we really are not. We are being manipulated, and that's a huge component of debt. So when it comes to the psychology of debt, our subconscious mind falls prey to unconscious processes. It is manipulation designed to make us spend money. Think about it. Think about the ads you saw even today, just Googling or on Facebook or any place else if you were out and you saw big billboards. That's what's happening with the psychology of debt. So when it comes to the psychology of debt, advertising and marketing specialists use various combinations of psychology and behavior to increase consumption of their products and services. All of it with the intention to tell you, buy me, I'll change your life. So what does that look like? The information and insights from all of the research in these various areas and fields are used to minimize us, the consumer's ability to recognize the long-term impact of debt on our lives when we purchase things we can't afford. So all of this psychology that we've just talked about, consumer sales and psychology of sales and consumer finance and consumer behavior, they want us to think more about the things that we want to have than about how that will impact our lives financially. And as you're going to see in today's webinar, how it will impact your health too. They're selling us the sizzle. They're selling us the benefits. We're going to look more beautiful, younger, thinner, sexier, whatever it is that we want to look like, that's what they're telling us we're going to be. And that's going to help us make the buying decisions. And so they are selling us what's in it for me. Every ad and every piece of marketing is to help you think about how much better, smarter, prettier you will be. And in a manner of speaking, that's the whole theory behind the psychology of debt. But interestingly enough, there really isn't the research I had anticipated finding on the psychology of debt. So I had this epiphany. Well, there's all this research on turning us into consumers, but not very much on helping us avoid the problems physically, mentally, emotionally, financially of debt. So what we really need is a psychology of consumer self-protection. We do need, this was a real epiphany for me and something I'm very excited about and intend to do a lot more work with. Because we need, as consumers and as therapists, counselors, financial literacy specialists, we need to help our clients and ourselves and our families understand a consumer-oriented, consumer-driven society is not looking out for individuals. So we know every time I use, here we go, psychology, the science of behavior and mind, embracing all aspects of conscious and unconscious experience as well as thought. And that's how we are manipulated and controlled because we're studied and the professionals learn how to encourage us to spend money on the things we want, not necessarily the things we need, and to separate us from the reality of how that will impact our lives in so many different ways. So psychology seeks to understand individuals and groups by establishing general principles and researching specific cases. So here we're starting to look at the psychology of consumer self being the key word, protection. So the other part of that is consumer protection laws. These are laws designed to protect consumers against unfair trade and credit practices involving faulty and dangerous goods or dishonest claims or tactics. But here's the bottom line. If any of you have ever tried to return something or complain about something that didn't work, many of those complaints fall on deaf ears. No one is truly looking out for the consumer, although the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is one of my very, very, very favorite organizations. And I encourage all of you to know about it, be familiar about it, share the information about it with your family, with your clients, and with others, and to work to save the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau because they are the only agency truly looking out for American consumers. But it will probably not come as a surprise to anyone on this webinar that the current administration is, very much against keeping the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or Dodd-Frank, which is the law that created it. So we may see it disappearing. So what would a psychology of consumer self-protection look like? Well, it would be behaviorally and individually based because our financial outcomes, our financial circumstances are based on our financial behavior. That's how we earn, spend, save, share, and borrow. And it's very individually based because we are all very, very different. And just as what motivates you to buy or spend money, what would encourage you to change that behavior is going to be uniquely your own. So what would a psychology of consumer protection look like? It would begin with greater personal insight into why each of us spends and buys. So as I explained my great epiphany, I became very involved and excited by the idea of a psychology of consumer, actually it's consumer self-protection. It started out 2 days ago as a psychology of consumer protection, but I realized very quickly that it has to be self-protection. It's not a law. And it's never going to be a specific area of psychology, but it is something that we can do. These are steps we can take to protect ourselves and to teach our clients how to protect themselves. So we're going to start with why some people spend and buy, because that's really the root of what we're talking about here in this psychology of consumer self-protection. There are many diverse triggers that influence each of our spending and buying decisions. Some people spend or buy to protect a certain image. They want people to think of them in a certain way. Some people spend because they can, a raise, gift, inheritance. Some people think that's meant to be spent, not saved. Others spend to experience the high of spending. It feels good to spend. Of course, that's only until the good feelings pass. And some spend to feel better than others for recognition. Some people spend for immediate gratification because they always have, to overcome past deprivation or losses, or to improve self-esteem and self-worth, even though we know that these are short-term feelings. But they are the causes, and along with some of these common spending triggers: family friction, disagreements, the end of a relationship, loneliness, being judged or criticized, being put down or teased. People spend because they have financial problems. They see it as an escape from those problems, even though, of course, it isn't. People spend because they're sick, because they've been yelled at. They spend to feel special. We soothe after a bad day by spending. We reward for a good day. We try spending to relax following an argument with a spouse, a boss, or a friend. We try to calm ourselves after sitting in traffic for a very long time. We handle being around someone who treats us badly by spending. We try to deal with a separation or a divorce in that way. And we do this to cope with stress, even though it only eventually increases the stress. So another name for this type of spending is emotional spending, which is when you buy something you don't need and want, but eventually you buy it under the emotions, the pressure of emotions like unhappiness, boredom, and feelings of being underappreciated. This is why it's called emotional spending, and we're going to take a look now with this poll at what percentage of Americans you think admit to emotional overspending. Let's get that poll up and see what you think. What percentage of Americans do you think admit to emotional overspending? Okay. You're voting pretty quickly here. I like to get to over 80%, and we're very close. So I'll go ahead, and we have some smart people in this audience. Well, we're almost at 90%. I'll count it down: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll go ahead and close that poll, and I'll show you how everybody voted. And then I'll go ahead and hide it, and I will show you the results. 49% of Americans admit to emotional overspending. Now, here's the backup information that I think is pretty interesting. Young people more likely to emotionally overspend. 65% of millennials versus 29% of boomers. I can think of a lot of reasons for that, and I'm sure you can too. Emotions across the spectrum impact spending. So here you see 29% spend for happiness, 22% for excitement, 13% to ease sadness. And women are more likely to overspend when stressed, but men are more likely to overspend when excited. By the way, I think I forgot to mention that we will do Q&A at the end of the webinar, but you can be sending in those questions in the question box as we go through this slides. So I think this may be our last poll. What percentage of Americans say debt stems from irresponsible spending? Let me get that last poll up and launch it. So these next few slides I found kind of interesting. We'll see what you think. You're a good group. I always tell our guest speakers what a great group we have because you participate so much, and it makes it all so much more fun for everyone, I think, especially for me and any guest speakers and the rest of the group. So 78% of you have voted. I'll give it another few seconds. I'll count it down. We're over 80%, so we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'll close that. I'll share your responses with all of you, and then I will show you the answers as I put these away. Okay, 60% of Americans say debt stems from irresponsible spending. Interesting, the opinion varies by income, but not a great deal. So 65% of people making over $100,000 versus 52% of people making under $52,000. And only 10% of people believe debt stems from necessities out of income. But 86% of Americans believe credit card debt can be acceptable. You can see this graph. Which of the following are acceptable reasons for going into credit card debt? These statistics are from NerdWallet, where we had originally planned to have a guest speaker on this topic. So people feel it's acceptable if to build debt for an emergency, for medical expenses, for necessary expenses during unemployment down the line. And this last statistics here is that 87% of Americans would be embarrassed to be in credit card debt, which I found kind of interesting because a very large percentage of Americans do have credit card debt. Of course, that doesn't mean that we know that they have it, but you can see what would be most embarrassing is purchases you can't afford, non-emergency travel expenses, cash advances, which are always very, very costly. So let's keep going. So why does debt happen? Well, we know that financial problems result from many complex social, economic, and personal challenges that we all have. Certainly from credit cards, the cost of children, which continues to increase. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars to raise a child to the age of 18. Food costs keep going up. Student debt is a huge problem. But so are things like the lack of self-acceptance, not feeling good about yourself, poor self-esteem, underemployment, unemployment, identity theft, predatory lending. There are so many ways that we incur debt. One of them that I didn't mention, that wasn't on that chart, and which isn't very often talked about, is the money disconnect. That's a concept of mine that I feel very, very strongly about. So what does that look like? It means that you are disconnected from your money, and that means you're out of touch with your money. By using direct deposit, which certainly most of most employers direct deposit today. We use digital wallets, credit cards, debit cards. We don't see our money. We don't touch our money. And when it's out of sight, it is truly out of mind. That's a problem. And it's really the foundation for the money disconnect. As banking and money management become more electronic, we have a great deal more convenience, but we also have a lot more security challenges. But we have at least 22% of mobile phone owners using mobile payments. And that only takes us further away and disconnects us more from our money. And the money disconnect changes how users spend money. Fans of online shopping and cashbacks soon will stop using real wallets to pay for everything with a phone swipe or a tap. And here's the real problem. The money disconnect makes it so much easier to spend more quickly, carelessly, and thoughtlessly without considering the long-term impact, without considering the time and work required to earn the money we're spending. And that is a serious problem. So why debt matters? Well, debt matters for many more reasons than I could go into right now. But right now, we'll just take a quick look at the fact that it is the number one stressor in people's lives, the number one cause of divorce, the number one reason employees contact their EAP department, a driving force behind most violence, a major source of anxiety, domestic violence, child abuse, crime, and alcohol and drug abuse. And the list goes on. And if you took each one of these, we've done webinars on domestic violence, and not having the money or access to money is the number one reason that women stay. All of these have a financial component. So now, not only does each of them have that financial component, but new research that I'm very excited about, because I've always realized there was this serious connection, shows us how debt and money relate to health. And this is from the CFED. It's called Your Finances or Your Health and Making the Health Wealth Connection. This is a webinar that they did on March 8th, and we borrowed it directly from them. So you can see how health factors look at genes and biology as being 10% of health, physical environment 10%, clinical care 10%, health behaviors 30%, but social and economic factors 40%. We can take a deeper dive into that. The conditions into which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. These are the social determinants of health. And you can see that economic stability is very much a part of this. Health effects of financial stress. You can see the physical health. You can see mental health. You can see the behavioral health. These all revolve around money and financial problems and poverty. And of course, debt. So your wealth, your health, one is dependent on the other. So the percentage reporting poor health by amount of household wealth overall and by race. I will give you a moment just to look at this. I'm sure it won't surprise most of you, but it is very significant. And you can see here that unstable financial circumstances jeopardize mental, physical, psychological, financial, and overall well-being. And this graphic shows you specifically how much greater how much more serious the problems, the physical health is impacted for those who have financial stress. Some of those numbers are really staggering. So next we come to a concept of mine that I call debt epidemic. And having created the word, I gave it the definition of the result of spending money you don't have or haven't earned. And when we do this and we're caught up in it, it is on the level of an epidemic, and it is called debt epidemic. So what causes or contributes to debt epidemic? Digital spending, as we just talked about. It's so much easier to spend, particularly when you're not spending cash. And we'll see that in another minute or two on the slides. Digital spending, not reading the fine print, lack of usury laws. Some of you probably know that the major credit card companies are all established in states that don't have any usury laws. So there is no maximum limit on interest rates. So consumerism, illness, student loans, easy access to credit, fluctuating interest rates and fees, having no savings, all of these contribute to debt epidemic. Stagnant incomes, job loss, divorce, foreclosure, bankruptcy, emotional or impulse spending, which we've been talking about, unemployment and underemployment. These are all very real, and they're all part of debt epidemic. And frictionless spending, that means when it's much easier to spend without having to count out the bills or the change, or even take out a credit card if you're using your phone. Using credit cards increases spending. The research is there because, and this is really fascinating, but understandable, you just don't have the same sense of loss as spending cash. When you go on a cash diet, it's a real eye-opener. There's just a completely different experience in spending cash as opposed to using a credit card. And the research proves that consumers are actually conditioned to spend more at the sight of a credit card logo. So this is just some of the research in all of the various psychologies that I shared with you at the very beginning of the webinar. And research indicates people buy more and spend more with credit cards, and people are more willing to spend money than time for the convenience. So that's debt epidemic. And an outgrowth of all of this is another concept that I don't believe I've ever shared on a webinar before, and I call that financial profiling. So all of this has happened and come about, which is so exciting and fascinating for me, because our guest speaker couldn't follow through on his commitment. And as I tried preparing this webinar for everyone for this amazing registration that we've had on it, I pulled together these various pieces that I've been working on for years. And financial profiling is an important one. This is not a webinar on credit scores, but if we're going to talk about financial profiling, which is discrimination based on your credit score, I thought it was important just to put up the major components of a credit score, because so much of our lives revolve around credit scores. And I was so fascinated in Hong Kong just a week or two that credit scores are not really a part of their lives because until recently, most people didn't even use credit cards. That is changing for a number of reasons, but credit scores here, our lives really revolve around them, and that's how I developed this concept of financial profiling. So before we talk about what it is, we're going to talk about who is at risk for financial profiling. And I'm guessing you pretty quickly understand from this graphic that everyone is very much at risk. So, financial profiling perpetuates the cycle of poverty, debt, and low or no assets. It wreaks havoc on the lives of those who have debt and financial problems. It makes the most intimate details of a person's money history available to strangers, and those strangers usually have the ability to damage your financial well-being. And it sentences those with a poor credit score to a future of financial problems, poverty, and debt. So, financial fingerprints are a part of financial profiling. We all know what profiling means. It means how we judge a person or a group of people. And we are all profiled by our credit scores, mostly our FICO scores. So the financial fingerprint component, that's a record of every credit card purchase each of us makes. It is the equivalent of your financial fingerprint. The details of that purchase, including when and how quickly you pay it off, is comparable to the record police keep to track suspects with previous records. We are all being tracked financially, and we are all being profiled, and that determines so much of our financial lives and our financial futures, because that record becomes part of your credit history, also known as your credit report. The where and how of person's spending reveals a surprising amount about that person's character, decision-making skills, honesty, reliability, responsibility. I wanted to say something else before we moved on. So what that's all about is that the major part of your credit score is how quickly and how on time you are with your payments. And those who have the highest and best credit scores pay the least in interest. Those with poor credit scores pay the most and may not be able to make purchases such as a home or a car. And that is all determined by the way we are financially profiled. So the psychology of consumer self-protection, as we wind down here, is at the heart of financial well-being. And those of you who know us and our certification and all of the work that we do nationally and internationally know how important financial well-being is to the work of the Center for Financial Social Work and to all of the work that I create. So financial well-being is about more than debt or dollars and cents. We may be profiled by our spending and our credit scores, but we're looking to create something far broader and more important when we're conceiving financial well-being. So why is it more than money? Because so much of our financial circumstances is based on how we feel about ourselves. And that's demonstrated by the fact that if we or our clients don't feel good about ourselves, we're far less likely to put in the time and the effort to create this change that's needed. So it's about having a healthy self-awareness, self-confidence, self-respect, self-esteem, self-worth, in combination with our financial behavior, which, as I already indicated, is how we earn, spend, save, share, and borrow. And the major problem is we're far more concerned with spending than we are with earning, saving, sharing. And we don't, of course, want to be too involved with borrowing, but it is a part of financial behavior. So financial social work is a holistic and wellness approach. And this is what it looks like. Our own or our client's relationship with money and with self is at the foundation of all of this work. It takes a healthy relationship with money and with self to drive a better behavioral model. And by now you should know that financial behavior is how we earn, spend, save, share, and borrow. And that's what determines our financial circumstances. And right here is where financial behavioral change happens. So financial social work is a behavioral model. It's ongoing and highly experiential, featuring financial education, motivation, validation, and support. It's interactive, introspective, and strengths-based. It works individually, one-on-one with clients, and with groups. And many of our graduates use it in practicing financial therapy. So dollars and cents don't make financial choices. This is so important to remember. We each have an inner money self. That's where our financial decisions are made. Our money doesn't jump out of the wallet. Our credit card doesn't leap out saying, buy this, buy that, buy the other. It's about so much more than dollars and cents. I just talked about, the need for higher self-esteem and self-confidence. That's what's required if we're going to actually go ahead and feel deserving of a better financial future and being more financially healthy. Financial circumstances originate from within the money self. Your money self includes your thoughts, feelings, and actions with your money and with yourself. And so this great quote, money is not the problem. It's our relationship with it that is the problem. So we will finish up with 10 helpful actions for achieving greater consumer self-protection. And then we will take the Q&A if we have questions coming in. So let's get some. Let's go ahead and take ownership. The first most important step with any situation is to take ownership, to claim responsibility. Once you do that, you make that commitment on the emotional and psychological, mental, as well as financial levels. It is how we begin the journey to sustainable, long-time financial behavioral change. What? Okay. 2, know which emotions influence your spending. The best way to do that is to have a little notebook that you carry with you, or even a piece of paper. And when you feel the need or the urge to spend, you need to describe how you're feeling. And it helps if you also describe what it is you buy when you make that purchase. In a very short period of time, you will begin to discern the pattern of your spending and to discover how you build debt with your spending. Next is to identify how spending makes you feel. That would be, you could have 3 columns in this little notebook. And first you would describe what you're feeling that makes you want or feel the need to buy. Then you could identify what it is you bought at that time and then describe how spending makes you feel. Very often we feel good because spending money elicits good feelings. But too often those feelings are short term. They don't last and they spin out of control into negative, dangerous, unhealthy feelings. So that's step 3. Connect to your money. We did that segment on the money disconnect. We have to be more aware of how much money we have, how much money we need, how much money we owe. These are the basics. When you're disconnected from your money, you're not thinking about the basics. You're not thinking about how much you have until your next payday. You're not thinking about how much money you owe and how you're going to cover those debts. Connect to your money on a regular basis, and it will help you to change your life financially and to create greater financial well-being. Know what money is and what it isn't, and know what money can and can't do. So what does that mean? Well, what is money? Money is a form of exchange. That's what it is. It's what we use to get the things we need and want. There's nothing magical about it. Money measures the value or worth of something to us or to others. And money means different things to different people. Let's just pause here for a few seconds to give you a chance to think about what money means to you. What does it represent to you? Some feel it represents life, death, success, failure, hope, hopelessness. The more you understand what money means to you, the clearer you'll be on how to create a better financial future for yourself. Money isn't good or bad. Money isn't the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees, and it can't buy happiness. Number 6, make friends with your money. Money is not the enemy. We sabotage our own financial well-being and financial futures when we think of money as the enemy, when we blame all of our problems on money. It's that money disconnect that leads to the financial profiling and the epidemic. It's all very intertwined. But when we make that shift towards friendship with our money, thinking more about taking control of it so that we can gain better control of our lives, thinking of all the positive things we can do with our money when we're not in debt, when we're not struggling financially. So make friends with your money. That's number 6. Get to know your inner money self. I introduced that concept to you a little while ago. It is an original concept that I believe very heavily in. Some people give their inner money self a name of its own. They talk to their inner money self. They use their inner money self to help them make friends with their money and to connect to their money. Spend time getting to know your inner money self. That's 7. Number 8 is avoid reframing, which is interesting because traditionally I do suggest reframing negative thoughts into positive thoughts. But when it comes to debt, reframing refers to something different. It refers to how we reframe the cost of something we can't afford. If it's something that's $500 and we don't have that $500, we are likely to be receptive should the salesperson suggest, well, you could break that down into monthly payments of a much, much smaller amount over the course of 5 years. So we're reframing the cost and making it more acceptable and increasing the likelihood that we will go ahead and make a purchase that we can't afford that could very quickly turn into debt. That's number 8. Number 9, share your journey with an accountability partner. Taking control of your money, creating sustainable long-term financial behavioral change can be a lot more fun when you share it with someone who's interested in achieving the same thing for him and her or herself. So share your journey, find an accountability partner, and see if that doesn't make a difference to your own financial well-being and to your partner's financial future. And finally, number 10 is to use financial apps. There are money-saving apps that try making saving money easier. And mobile technology automates, motivates, and can make saving fun. Some are free, some have fees. Some require users to share account numbers and passwords. But for some, it feels less intimidating to start small and somewhat unintentionally. Digit, Dime, and Acorns are a few of these. This one that I have the graphic of, Welcome to Micro Investing. You can see you do have to connect your accounts to it, but every time that you make a purchase, it rounds up that amount of change and it deposits to the nearest dollar in your account. So there are certainly many different financial apps for budgeting, for saving, for investing, but it is another way to help yourself eliminate debt and reduce the likelihood of creating greater debt. So for those of you new to financial social work, our certification program is self-study and self-paced. Our students have 6 months to complete it. There's an online financial final exam that students have 2 weeks to complete, and it does include 20 CEUs from National NASW. And here are a few highlights on financial social work. Our curriculum has been taught at the University of Kentucky since 2011. Financial social work is in the online encyclopedia of social work. It's in Wikipedia, and it's now in Hong Kong, I am proud to say. So, the psychology of consumer self-protection, not what we started out with, but definitely where we ended up. I hope that you have enjoyed attending this webinar as much as I enjoyed creating it. And now I'm going to go ahead and see what kind of questions. So some of you are asking about the slides. You will receive the recording, but the slides are proprietary, so we don't share those. They take a very, very, very long time to create and the content and do the research and design the slides. So I agree with the money disconnect. This is evident with young kids who see parents not using money, but plastic digital have no concept of connection between work and how it gets into the phone ATM. Oh, you are so right, Mary. Actually, my work in Hong Kong was designed to address the needs of youth in Hong Kong. And of course, the concept of teaching greater financial wellness and well-being to youth in the United States is a huge frustration in my life and something I'm very committed to. But just reading your comments here, I just have to say I couldn't agree with you more. It's a big problem. But I have lots of ideas on how to resolve some of that. But that's another webinar, I guess. I joined a little late, but I'm wondering if there's a way to get a copy of the slides. Someone says illness brings it on. Definitely. Just lost my husband to a heart attack. Now I don't know where to go from here. No money. Oh gosh. Oh, please, if I can help you, you can give me a call. Is our 800 number here? Yes, there's the 800 number. And there's my email if you'd like to be in touch with me. I am so sorry for your loss. I'm interested in learning the mindset of low-income individuals who repeatedly call social work services for emergency financial assistance. Well, it's the good news and the bad news. Too often, we create or contribute to that dependency of clients on our various services. It's a story I hear time and time again when I'm speaking around the country or talking with clients on the phone, students, graduates. And the really scary part for me is the fact that it looks like a lot of those services are going to disappear. They've been disappearing. The needs are increasing. The services are decreasing. And we have to really focus on preparing clients for this changing world, this changing economy, the disappearance of services. It is not a good time in that respect. I'm looking. Thank you. I'm glad that the person that shared that this was a great webinar, but her other favorite was on predatory lending. That was a few years ago. That was a very depressing webinar, but it was so informational. We need to have her do another one. I work with clients who spend money on things like traveling to their country or getting their hair done, but will not pay their rent. How do I help them with their lack of judgment? Well, that's not easy. What's unique about financial social work is that psychosocial component. We help clients explore the thoughts, feelings, and attitudes that drive their financial behavior. When we talk to them about the B word, nobody likes the B word for budget. It's over their head. They've heard it before, probably from other agencies or workers or services. So we really have to get to the root of the problem and learn what clients are thinking. This isn't, a quick fix or an easy shift, but when we help clients to understand, if you remember early on, I talked about how marketers and all of these psychology of spending and behavior finance, these things are designed to make sure that we aren't thinking about creating debt. We're thinking about getting that new pair of shoes or whatever else it is we want to buy. And we have to help clients understand. So that was about what's in it for me. We need to help clients understand why they are where they are and connect them to where they want to be in the future. This doesn't happen a lot in service provision. But when we do that, we give clients ownership. Once they know what they want for the future, and so often it's that their children should have a better future than they had, we can work together to develop a strategy to make that happen. what are ways you suggest that we help clients get more intimate knowledge of their inner money self? Well, there's a lot of ways, but the best one is to just, and it's something I want to develop further. But it's just to start talking about your inner money self. What is it? What does it look like? What would you tell your inner money self? Give your inner money self a name. What does your inner money self think about spending? What does it think about saving? It kind of removes the behavior and burden of guilt and debt, and provides some space to think differently about what's going on with a person's money. Maybe choose Hong Kong as a market. Well, let me put it this way. Hong Kong chose me. Very interesting. They contacted me a little over a year ago, and we went back and forth for all that time creating this agreement. It's a 5-year agreement. And when I got there, I was pretty surprised at the amazing things they really are doing with financial literacy for young people. Very exciting. And they have an agency that's doing a lot of research, and they will probably be bringing financial literacy into their schools, probably a long time before we do, which is very disappointing to me at this end, because I think it's so important and we should be doing this. Should equal sense. I've managed to coach my 22-year-old son to be responsible financially, and he's saving in a 401k, but I'm not able to convince him to have an emergency fund. Any ideas? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, and for those of you who are still, hanging in there with me, I'll stay here and answer as many of these questions as I can while you're, still with me, is to discuss with him what would happen if he needed, whether it's $5,000 or $500 because his car broke down or he was invited to a wedding somewhere. Ask him where he would get that money from. If the answer is you, then you need to rethink how you're working with him around his finances. A lot of time, the need for help from social services doesn't have a great deal to do with the person's mindset. It's just the times we are living and experiencing. This is sometimes true. If we are profile targeted, how do you escape that or overcome it? Well, we overcome it with my psychology of consumer self-protection. We overcome it by taking some of the steps I shared. I mean, I could easily give you 25 more steps. There's a lot of things we can do, and the most important is to be more aware, to understand the message that all of that marketing and advertising is sending to you, to question, is this a want or a need? We need to spend our money on needs, not on wants. We need to be clear which is which. We want to be sure that we ask ourselves, they're telling me I'll be richer, smarter, prettier, thinner. Are these things that are priorities for me? Or is living debt-free important to me? Or is helping my grandchild take an after school? It's about prioritizing. Prioritizing is key in these situations. I will develop this further, and we will do more with it. People are becoming upset that the financial crisis support is no longer available. And I can appreciate that. And I've been talking and writing about it for a long time. And it's not good. It's just not a good place to be in this country. And so I think we owe it to our clients to try to prepare them for the reality of life in 2017. Uh, I don't want to get into politics. Not a good idea. You are correct. Sometimes our social service programs make them more dependent and is enabling. Sadly so. If someone completes the financial social work 6 months course, can they use the information to help clients? And if so, is there a curriculum to use it to share with clients? All of our clients, all of our graduates are able to use all of the materials, which are original materials, in the certification one-on-one with all of their clients. And we do have a separate group program. How exciting if they bring financial literacy to schools. Yes, it's very exciting for them. I want us to be excited because we need it in our schools too. Okay. So it looks like, let's see. What we have to remember is that we can't place our values on others. What is a priority to us may not be for someone else. Absolutely. A client could potentially be content with where they are. So we have to narrow in on the ones that do want to change. Well, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the first thing I ever learned in grad school from social work was to meet the client where the client is. And we have to respect that. And absolutely, not everyone wants to change, but I think that a lot of people do want to change, but don't know what that looks like, don't know how to frame it, and don't have the opportunity. You know, if you're living below the poverty line, you do have access in this country to some services, like that, some agencies that do offer, you know, financial education and financial literacy, but not all have access to that. And mostly if you're in the middle class, you don't have access to that. There is just not enough help out there. And that's why instead of charging for these free monthly webinars and offering CEUs, we offer them free to try and make them available to the most people. And we did have an incredible registration for this one. I was very concerned because a lot of you were thanking me, and I really appreciate that because, you know, midstream, it stopped being about the psychology of debt and started being about the psychology of consumer self-protection. I enjoyed this session with you. I loved your questions and your comments and your feedback. I think we'll have to include some workforce development in our program so that some who simply don't have enough income can do better. When we know better, we do better. Very true. Very true. Great comments, everybody. To the student that wanted more information about completing the certification, you can email me at Rita at Financial Social Work, and I can respond to that. Thanks, everybody. We have another great webinar scheduled for next month. It's supposed to have a guest speaker, but I'll be here to host it. I'll look forward to seeing you back here and appreciate your taking the time this afternoon to be with me. Have a great day. And don't forget to practice the psychology of consumer self-protection. Bye now.